All right, hey guys. So we just have to go through and finish up section 9.3, which deals with, again, just solving quadratic equations using square roots. So kind of building off of the stuff in the previous video, what we want to start by doing here, the directions are the same. 4x squared minus 13 equals 15. We still want to solve using square roots. But what's going to happen is we're not going to be given a perfect square like we were on like any of these examples or like this example here. We're going to be given a number that's not a perfect square. Okay, so here's how we deal with it. We start by, our normal process where we want to get x squared all by itself. So that's going to be 4x squared equals, oh, whoops, this should be 13. I must have just looked up right above. So that turns into 28. Then again, we got to go through and again, get x squared all by itself. So that turns into 7. Okay, now, hopefully, fingers crossed by now, we realize that, well, 7's not a perfect square. So what's going to happen then? We're going to go ahead, we're still going to take the square root of 7. So that's going to be, it's going to be both positive and negative square root of 7. But if we look now, it says round the solutions to the nearest hundredth. Okay, so in your calculator, go through and actually figure out what is the square root of 7. And then when you figure that out, when you do that in your calculator, it should come out to both 2.65. So you actually have two solutions here again. That's positive 2.65 and negative 2.65. So on your assignment, if they give you two blanks, it's because they want both the positive answer and the negative answer. And realistically, that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't feel like I need to do much more explanation there. So let's move on to the next example. Let's see, I did not put these in your, oh yes, I did put these in your packet. So your task right now is to go ahead, figure out 7, 8, and 9. Solve them, pause the video. None of them should turn out to be super nice numbers, so go ahead and do your thing here. I'm going to move on to the next example. So here we have a touch tank, which looks like just a stingray tank that you would see at like SeaWorld or something like that. A touch tank has a height of 3 feet. Okay, so that's this piece over here. Its length is 3 times its width. Okay, so we're looking at this down here. This distance is 3 times the width, which then makes this distance just W. Okay? So let's think about this for a second. Remember, when we are finding volume, because that's the next part, that's length times width times height. So, let's see. It says the volume of a tank is 270 cubic feet. So let's take 270, plug that in for V. We're just going to do a whole bunch of substitution now. The length is, the length is 3W. So we're going to take 3W, plug that in for L. W is going to be plugged in for width. And then the height is 3. Okay, now let's just combine everything here. We're just going to multiply all of this stuff together. So I've got 270 equals 3 times 3 gives us 9. W times W, please do not say that that is 2W. It is W squared. Again, if there's anything you get from me this year, it should be that when you multiply, it turns into W squared. W squared factors into W times W. Okay, sorry. Again, our goal is just to start getting W all by itself. We need to figure out what our width is in order for us to find our length. And that's the goal of this problem, is to find both the length and the width. So Woofda. Okay, so then from here, 270 divided by 9, let's see, 27 divided by 9, that's 3, so that would be 30 equals w squared. And then in order to get w all by itself, we have to go ahead and take the square root of both sides. So we get both the positive and negative square root of 30. But if we think about it, we're talking about distances, right? Length, width, height, yada, yada, yada. It doesn't make sense for us to have a negative solution. So we're just going to go ahead and say that our width is the square root of 30. It all kind of depends on what the problem is specifically asking you for. It could ask you to write it as a decimal. So quickly grab your calculator, figure out what is the square root of 30. So let's see, square root of 30. That turns into about 5.477225575. So just rounding would be something like 5.5 approximately feet. So that's our width. And then remember the length is 3 times the width. So that would be 3 root 30. But I mean, thinking about it, we don't really ever say that. We don't ever leave root as our answer when we're talking about like length and width. So it does make more sense for us to just turn that into a decimal. And if you do that, so 3 times basically this 5.5 turns into 16.4 feet approximately. So just kind of depends on the context of the problem. Be prepared to answer it as a radical. And in this instance, there is not a perfect square that can come out of there, but maybe there's an instance where they would want you to take a perfect square out of there. Fortunately for us, that is not the case with this one. All right, then the last problem that we're going to go through and do. We're looking at an equilateral triangle. And again, they're just talking about area of this equilateral triangle. It has side lengths, okay, right? S, 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 they're all the same. We know they are all the same because it says that it's equilateral. I'm going to start by just writing down this formula. So A equals the square root of 3 over 4 times S squared. First step says solve the formula for S. Okay, we've done this already at some point this year where we were just trying to get certain variables all on their own. You guys just isolating. So the first step you're going to want to do is let's multiply by the reciprocal here, because once you do that, these 4's cancel each other out, these root 3's cancel each other out. But remember, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So this has to turn into 4 over root 3. So this is going to turn into, let's see, we've got S squared over here. And then we've got 4A over root 3. And this is going to be kind of weird, you guys, because the next step, in order to get S all by itself, is you have to take the square root again. So it's kind of a weird concept. But what happens here is you end up with the square root of 4A all over the square root of 3. And yes, it is legal for you to take a square root of a square root. It's just weird to look at. They didn't ask us to do any further simplifying than that, so you can kind of technically leave this like this. Realistically, you don't want to leave a square root in the denominator, but for the sake of this problem, because we're taking it a step further, they don't ask you to rationalize the denominator. They just want you to go ahead now and figure out the side length. when you have an area of 390 square inches. So you're just going to take the formula that you had from before, and you're going to plug 390 in. Shoot, I should. That's not going to work out super nicely. But, so you're just going to do 4 times 390 all over the square root of 3. Nope, not A, S. 4 times 390 turns into 1,560. So the square root of that over the square root of 3. And I believe when you do this in your calculator, it's like 30.011. I think there's like a third one in there. And yeah, so they just want you to approximate. In this instance, your side length is approximately 30 inches. All right, that's all for now. Go ahead and make sure that you're ready to take the quiz tomorrow. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Otherwise, make sure you ask me before or after class tomorrow. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.